Hello everyone, welcome again to another installment. We are in John chapter 18, so you can turn there and follow along with me. What we have just heard from chapter 13 is the Last Supper. Jesus has a meal with his disciples and washes their feet. Judas is labeled as the betrayer and he leaves. 14 through 17 is one long message or a series of talks that Jesus gave to his disciples while in that upper room or on their way to the garden where he's about to pray here. And so this has been one long night, an evening meal followed up by lots and lots of teachings by Jesus. And now verse 18, we have a location change. Now when Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the ravine of the Kidron, where there was a garden into which he himself entered and his disciples. Now Judas also, who was betraying him, knew the place, for Jesus had often met there with his disciples. Judas then, having received a Roman cohort and officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. I think our best guesstimation is maybe around 70 people were there to come and arrest Jesus and his 11 followers. Verse 4, Jesus therefore, knowing all the things that were coming upon him, went forth and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" They answered him, "Jesus the Nazarene." He said to them, "I am he." And Judas also, who was betraying him, was standing with them. Now therefore he had said to them, "I am he." They drew back and fell to the ground. Now, perhaps it was just the phrase "I am," which should be familiar to the "I am" statements in the book of John, and the phrase that Jesus gave, or the title that God himself gave himself in Exodus chapter 3. So when 70 people are coming to arrest Jesus, they ask, "We are searching for Jesus the Nazarene," and he answers, "I am." And at that moment, they all fall over. It's just like the power of God came over them, and they all just fell down. I would think if I were one of these 70 Roman soldiers, I'd be out. There's no way I'm going to continue to try to arrest this powerful man. Verse 7, again therefore he asked them, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus the Nazarene." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way. If you seek me, let my followers go in peace." That the word might be fulfilled which he spoke, "Of those whom thou hast given me, I lost none of them." He didn't want any of them to perish or die because of him being arrested at this point. Simon Peter, therefore, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's slave and cut off his right ear. The slave's name was Malchus. Now, Peter very often speaks before thinking and acts before thinking. And here's another classic example of Peter being Peter. At this moment, he's got a weapon, he's going to draw it, and he's going to attack. And he chops off this servant's ear. Verse 11, Jesus therefore said to Peter, "Put your sword into your sheath. The cup which the Father has given me, shall I not drink it?" There's no way he can avoid this. This is the very thing that he came to do, and this is the Father's purpose. We're not told here, but in other of the gospel accounts, Jesus actually pauses and heals this person's ear and restores him back to fullness. Verse 12, so the Roman cohort and the commanders and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him and led him to Annas first, for he is the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. Now, we're also not told in the Gospel of John, but the rest of the disciples flee. They run away. They all scatter. And that is also a fulfillment of prophecy, that when the time comes, all of the sheep will be scattered away. Verse 14, now Caiaphas was one who had advised the Jews that it was expedient for one man to die on behalf of the people. And Simon Peter was following Jesus, and so was another disciple. We believe this other disciple to be John, the disciple, the one who's writing it. Now that disciple was known to the high priest and entered with Jesus into the court of the high priest. But Peter was standing at the door outside, so the other disciple who was known by the high priest went out and spoke to the doorkeeper and brought in Peter. Now, we're going to get into where Peter denies Jesus 3 times. John apparently is fine being recognized as a follower of Jesus, but we're also not given any people that are attacking John. We don't have any record of that. Verse 17, the slave girl, therefore, who kept the door, said to Peter, "You are not also one of these men's disciples, are you?" And he said, "I am not." That's number 1. Now the slaves and the officers were standing there, having made a charcoal fire, for it was cold. They were warming themselves, and Peter also was there with them, standing and warming himself. The high priest therefore questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teachings. Jesus answered him, "I have spoke openly to the world. I also spoke in synagogues and in temples, where all the Jews came together, and I spoke nothing in secret. Why do you question me? Question those who have heard what I spoke to them. Behold, these know what I said." And when he had said this, one of the officers standing by gave Jesus a blow, hit him on the face, saying, "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered him, "If I have spoken wrongly, bear witness of the wrong. But if rightly, why do you strike me?" Ananias therefore sent him to Caiaphas the high priest. Now you have a couple things going on here. The Jewish people couldn't condemn someone to death because they were under the rulership of Rome. The Romans didn't want them going about killing whoever they wanted, so if they had a death penalty, an accusation of a death penalty, they had to bring it to the Romans, present their case, and the Romans would carry out that death sentence. Well, right now, they're trying to make a case for arresting Jesus, condemning him to death, anything. But no one can really find anything wrong that he has done, and they're passing him along to different authorities, hoping that somebody is going to find some reason to condemn this person, to punish him, and hopefully condemn him to death. Ananias couldn't find it. Caiaphas is now next. Verse 25. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They said therefore to him, "You are not also one of the disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, being related to the one whose ear he'd cut off. So you just came across the relative of the person that you cut the ear off of. That relative has shared all the details and information of where this happened, who did this to me. And now you're coming across that person, and that person says, "I know you're one of his disciples." Verse 26, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Peter therefore denied it again, and immediately a cock crowed. So exactly what Jesus predicted just a few chapters earlier comes to pass. Now we're not told if Jesus looks at him during this time or if he looks at Jesus. We assume these types of things happened when we watch the Passion of the Christ together or other visual depictions. That's very often the way it's depicted, but nonetheless. Verse 28, "They led Jesus therefore from Caiaphas into the praetorium, and it was early. They themselves did not enter the praetorium in order that they might not be defiled, but might eat the Passover." So they couldn't enter a unclean location because the Passover meal was about to happen so soon. They didn't want to make themselves ceremonially unclean, so they didn't go in with Jesus. They just sent him to go meet with the Jewish leader of that area called Pontius Pilate. Verse 29, "Pilate therefore went out to them and said, 'What accusation do you bring against this man?' They answered and said to him, If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have delivered them up to you. Very true, but you still didn't answer the question. What is this man guilty of? Pilate therefore said to him, take him for yourselves and judge him according to your law. So Pilate knows that he's being set up. There's no accusation here as to why they're bringing him before this person. And Pilate says, take him back. You take care of him. The Jews said to him, we are not permitted to put anyone to death, that the word of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he spoke, signifying by what kind of death he was about to die. Jesus predicted a crucifixion type death. And only the Romans did that. The Jewish people didn't do that. Pilate therefore entered again into the praetorium and summoned Jesus to him. Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, are you saying this on your own initiative, or do others tell you about me? Pilate answers, I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own tradition and chief priest delivered you up to me. What have you done? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. And if my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting, that I might not be delivered up to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm. Pilate therefore said to them, so you are a king? Jesus answered, you have said correctly that I am a king. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everybody who is of the truth hears my voice. Pilate said to him, what is truth? And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I should release someone to you at the Passover. Do you wish then that I should release for you the king of the Jews? Therefore they cried out again, saying, not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. Pilate knew that he was kind of in a difficult situation. If there's another Jewish uprising, he as the governor would probably be kicked out and he'd be in trouble. He didn't want that. He also knew that this man was innocent and not deserving of death whatsoever. So he played on this tradition. There's a tradition, apparently, this is the only example we have of it, that at the Passover they would release a prisoner. And so he chose maybe the worst prisoner that he had at that time. Do you want to release this prisoner, this horrible person, or this Jesus? And I'm assuming he didn't think that they're going to cry for Jesus' death and crucifixion. So that's the end of chapter 18. See you next time.